Hello, folks. I am Jim the Eternal, and I am here to share this wonderful game and these two wonderful racers with you. On the right, we have alwaysintreble, a stalwart member of the Timespinner Randomizer community. On the left, we have Jarno, the primary developer of the Timespinner Randomizer. And I'm just really excited. I am Jim the Eternal, and I'm really excited to be here, and I hope you'll enjoy the race as much as I will. To start off, we are going to be seeing our racers pick up a set of orbs, primary weapons, and a spell. We have Blue Orb, which is the standard starting orb, not particularly powerful. And then Storm Eye for our spell. And if you notice the minus sign next to the Storm Eye, we have Damage Randomizer enabled for these tournament settings. Which means that some spells, some orbs will be more powerful than others, and some will be weakened. In this case, we have the Storm Eye weakened and the Blue Orb at standard power levels. We'll see what ends up happening with our racers if they pick up something particularly impressive. Wow, and we're starting with Twin Pyramid Keys. That is amazing. So the Twin Pyramid Keys is the fast travel mechanism for this game. You can see Jarno immediately warping to the present to check out what's available, what's nearby. Alwaysintreble, sticking to the past for now, heading to the left, picking up a chest, and then heading off to the right where we expect the primary portion of this early game to be. Alwaysintreble also immediately picking up the Celestial Sash, which is a very important piece. This is going to provide all of the vertical movement that our runners are going to need in order to get through this game. And Jarno not very far behind him, delayed a little bit having gone to the present, but following pretty much in Treble's footsteps. Aura Serpent plus an interesting spell, and an indicator that the Empire Orb, one of the more powerful melee weapons in the game, is going to be plus as well. Jarno, providing yet another divergence here, Jarno going further left than Treble did. Presumably this is just to check in on a warp location. The Twin Pyramid Keys allows the players to warp to any warp location that they have seen before. Jarno, by unlocking that warp, presumably is going to prevent some backtracking later on, and getting a couple more checks than Treble did. Alwaysintreble now checking that present location as well. And looks like they're going to be going through the same motions that Jarno did, picking up the easy checks nearby before possibly moving on to... no, continuing to do more checks in the past. Just exploring. Fair enough. Not much is available to our runners in the present right now. They're gated on the right side by the military hangar, which requires 3 of the past bosses to be defeated. They're gated going up by the elevator keycard, which will unlock the elevator. And they're gated on the left side by security keycard B, which will open the security door. But with Celestial Sash available, there's not going to be a lot of checks that they can't get on the way. Jarno making yet another diversion, going into the Caves of Banishment below the castle area, whereas Treble just heading straight into the castle. Jarno looks like, again, just checking that warp point, making sure that they have access to all of the territory that they're going to need, and being a little bit more completionistic in their checks. And on the whole, it seems to be paying off. Jarno has a V key card, which may or may not prove useful. Otherwise, our runners are in very similar locations. Jarno potentially in a better position when heading back to the left later on, But Treble very clearly seeing new territory before Jarno is. Grimdall makes a good point. Jarno picked up the Eternal Coat, which is the best piece of body armor available. You'll only need an Empire Crown to fill out the set. Treble taking an unfortunate death there. That's going to send him back a minute or so. Looks like they've taken one of the more recent saves, though, so this shouldn't be too much of a problem for them. That did allow Jarno to almost catch up now. Jarno about 3 rooms behind instead of the previous 5 or 6. Picking up that star again for Treble. The star is an accessory which basically adds time and a half to your melee DPS. Whenever your melee orb is on cooldown, it gives you a 3rd attack instead of the default 2. Treble moving forward, though, making good progress. Oh, Treble apparently skipped one of the checks, resulting in the Timespinner gear. So the end result of this game, once we've cleared out the past and made our way to the military hangar, the racers are going to need to find all 5 pieces of the Timespinner in order to challenge whoever is at the end boss location. The Timespinner gear that Jarno now has is going to be an important part of that, so Treble will have to backtrack to pick that up later. Treble picking up that Empire Crown, the other piece of the extremely good body armor. Treble got it the first time? Okay. They might have not remembered that it was there. It's I'm sure that he will figure it out when it starts to become relevant. So, with the Celestial Sash in hand, most likely we're going to see our runners head to the right from here, up the tower that contains 2 of the 3 bosses that are required in order to open up the present fully. Treble indeed going up the tower, and now moving left to challenge whoever is going to be in the Golden Idol boss location. So one thing that we've got going on here is the boss randomizer, in addition to all the other things that are randomized. The boss that you will face is not necessarily the boss that's usually in that location. So an early game boss could be in a late game boss's location. A late game boss could be in an early game boss's location. And their health and damage will be scaled appropriately. Treble now finding the Water Mask, an important progression item. That's going to be necessary to challenge the 3rd boss all the way on the left side of the past. Gated by a couple of underwater places. That also opens up a couple more underwater checks. We'll see whether Treble decides to route those in once they're through the towers. Here we see Genza replacing the Golden Idol. Genza weak to fire, and alwaysintreble happens to have a plus fire orb, so he should make quick work of this boss. Genza is normally a decently late game boss, but in the Golden Idol's location, they're going to be significantly nerfed damage output and a little bit nerfed HP. Health is making me scared. Treble clears it handily. And that Eternal Coat definitely paying off for Jarno. You can see Jarno doing time and a half as much damage as Treble was. Very large fire hits, and the boss fight ends much, much quicker. Jarno definitely catching up. Those extra checks that he's routed in at the beginning seeming to pay off for now. Always in trouble making the expected decision here to continue up the towers. Moving through all of the checks on the way to fight whoever is going to be in Ilana's position up at the top of the towers. Picking up yet another security keycard, this time the keycard C, one that may or may not be relevant for progression. Keycard C gates a couple of chests, but doesn't gate progress in the direction our racers need to go. Trouble picking up Light Wall Minus. Light Wall is another one of the things that our racers could be using for verticality, but with Celestial Sash it's kind of obsolete. It does, however, indicate that Radiant Orbs, one of my personal favorites, will be minus, so probably not that effective. Always in trouble ducking into the shop. Ah, there it is. One of the things that our racers are going to want to pick up are the Warp Shards, which allows you to teleport from wherever you are to the last warp point that you used. Yet another reason why the Pyramid Keys and the Fast Travel are so important to the travel in this game. Jarno as well, picking up a couple of Warp Shards. And our two racers in lockstep, separated by 15-20 seconds at this point. Very close to each other. So here we see Cantorin replacing the Ilana fight. Cantorin, a fight much like Ilana, to be honest. Very similar mechanics. Normally occupying a somewhat later game position. Jarno opting to break out the Aura power spells, which are dealing extra damage. This boss is weak to Aura, and Trouble taking yet another unfortunate death. That's going to set him behind Jarno. Fire Orb's definitely doing work, but the Aura Serpent looking quite a bit more powerful here. Aura Serpent especially useful in that it fixes you in place while you're casting it, giving Jarno a bit more hang time over the ground-based attacks that Cantorin is using when stuck up in the air. And Jarno is now ahead. That extra power and the choice in spells paying off. Trouble looking like he's in the second phase of the fight now. Cantorin has changed their attack pattern. Oh no. Yet another unfortunate death. This is, of course, still anybody's race. There are quite a lot of pieces that still need to be found before everything is said and done. So even though this is going to put Trouble a bit behind, with some smart routing, they could definitely pull ahead again. Jarno now heading to the other side of the tower to finish clearing out all of the checks in this part of the past. And as expected, once those checks are cleared out, using that Warp Shard and teleporting out to immediately head over to the left side of the map. Treble continues to struggle against Cantor. But going right back into it, ready to take on the challenge. Jarno being completionistic on the way, getting the fairly easy to get underwater checks. The room that Jarno was just in is the normal location for the Cantor and boss fight, which with our tournament flags we have turned on. Jarno opting not to check that fight immediately. Jarno using that fire orb in order to burn the mines will unlock some extras and present. Assuming our runners ever get the present. Give it their work. A bit away. To be reconnected. My apologies. Let's see if I can catch back up. Always in trouble, looking like they've made it past Alana now. Is this the Cantorin fight? Is this Varndegree replacing Cantorin? Actually, it's not right out. Varndegroth's patterns are a little bit harder to deal with, and they have reduced damage from being in a late boss location. Jarno finding the gas mask just before they need it. Excellent, excellent. Jarno now challenging the Maw, replaced by Zarian. Extremely late game boss. A little bit of an easier fight, given that they're in an earlier boss's location. And Jarno perfectly able to just sit there and tank it. That means Jarno now has all 3 bosses in the past completed. Opting to finish out some of these past checks before moving on to the present. Rebel going through Lake Serene now. Clearing out checks before heading down into the Caves of Banishment, where they'll fight Zarian, just as Jarno did. Assuming I have the timeline right, assuming I didn't miss something drastic. And for people who are unfamiliar with Timespinner is a fantastic Metroidvania. Very crisp, very clean, beautiful mechanics, and the randomizer has given it so much more life. Really a fantastic game on both sides. Jarno now in the upper Caves of Banishment, making the typical decision. After defeating Maw, taking the elevator back up, sort of doing a full loop of the past. And then taking this warp back to home base, which puts you right next to a pyramid key warp point. A convenient place to move on to the present from. And with those 3 past bosses completed, the military hangar is now open. Jarno moving towards the lab. They do have the B card, so there's other places they could explore, but the B card also is the necessary key card to open the way to the lab. The tablet, an interesting pickup here. The tablet opens quite a few checks in the lab, but also a few checks in the library, an earlier game that is quite check dense. This may be a good reason to go back and look at that, or it may be a good reason to push forward and be able to full clear the lab given their tools. Now, Always in Trouble notably does not have the B card yet. Jarno, of course, has the gear to happily face tank any amount of damage at this point. Can't be too carefree, but as you can see, the spike's not causing them much of an issue. Jarno looks like they just picked up a piece of plasma gear, which opens up another check in the past, and very quickly going back to check it out. The royal ring, in fact. Nothing of importance available, but Jarno being very complete in their routing. Trouble now fighting their way through the back end of the Caves of Banishment, about ready to challenge Zarian in the Maul's position. Jarno now doubling back to check a couple of other locations. No elevator keycard, though, so still no way to get into the Varndegree Towers. Looks like Jarno wants to full clear the areas that they may have skipped before moving on. Did I misread it? Do they not have the B key card? They don't have the B key card. I see what's going on. I think I saw a V and mistook it for B. Wow. Waterfall being a very important set of checks. One of the 5 Timespinner pieces and the elevator key card that Jarno was looking for in order to continue exploring in the past. Or in the present, rather. Trouble's dedication to the Fire Orb now paying off. Zarian, a boss that is weak to fire. Still don't have that B key card. But Jarno now on the hunt, making some decisions to check out Varndegree Towers. Imagine B card in Spider Hell. Yeah, that's absolutely a place it could be. Jarno does have that A card in hand and has chosen to avoid the appropriately named Spider Hell room. Spiders in there are hard to kill and impossible to bypass. Jarno heading up to the top of the Varndegree Towers in order to fight the boss in Varndegroth's location. This is a fairly early boss location, and Jarno decides it's not worth their time. The immediate save and quit. Treble now in the upper Caves of Banishment, checking those underwater checks at the end of the post-Maw loop. Following effectively in Jarno's footsteps. And there it is, Security Keycard B. This is what Jarno's been looking for. This is what will open the rest of the way to the lab. Jarno looking like they want to be complete with their tour of the elevator towers. And Treble immediately making the routing decision to go to the waterfall area, picking up that Timespinner gear, picking up that that elevator key card that Jarno took a while to find. Jarno skipped a chest on the right side as well. Oh, yeah. We'll see if that holds anything important, or Now going through the library, a very check-dense area. There's a lot to find here. An understandable place to continue looking for those Timespinner pieces that he doesn't have. He doesn't have the familiar necessary to open up the Ifrit fight. So that's a thing that he'll have to come back for if he's interested in taking that fight. For those who don't live, eat, and breathe this randomizer, one of the flag settings that we have turned on here is the optional fights, Ifrit and Ravenlord, who are usually at the end of a optional endgame location, have portals that you can open that are gated by some of the familiars that you fight in the game. The Kobo familiar gates the Ifrit fight, and the Merchant Crow familiar gates the Ravenlord fight. Ifrit available at the top of the library, and Ravenlord, a somewhat harder boss, available deep in the lab. Jarno, having completed the library, is now back on the right side of the map, clearing out some of the security keycard B gated checks they weren't able to hit earlier. And then moving into the lab. Still missing 2 Timespinner pieces, but with Celestial Sash, they have sufficient vertical, so all that's missing is those 2 Timespinner pieces for Go Mode. Treble deciding that Dad does not scare them, taking the Nuvius fight. Blowing through it. Varndegroth is in fact an early game location, and an Eternal Crown is their reward. Opting not to equip it over the Empire Crown, a decision I agree with. Jarno finishing the bottom loop of the lab. Looks like they didn't go into the lab's spider hell room, so also choosing to avoid spiders here. Plasma Plus, another massive orb. Not that Jarno needs any more equipment. They're fully loaded at this point, but if they wanted the additional help, it's there. Trouble now picking up that security keycard B, which means the way is open for them as well. Jarno looks like skipping the checks in the middle of the lab, the trash dump area. 2, 3, yep, 5 checks. And if the wheel or the spindle, the last remaining pieces of the Timespinner, are there, they're going to have to backtrack to find those later on. In the meantime, we see Jarno fighting the Sandman fight. The first part of the usual end boss now moved to Genza's location. Lightly scaled down, but not by much, and finding the Succubus Hairpin, double jump, as a reward. Not necessarily a huge benefit at this point, given that Celestial Sash provides all of the verticality you'll need, but the double jump does provide a little bit of horizontal mobility. You'll notice that when the Celestial Sash is used, it arrests their horizontal momentum, whereas double jump keeps that going, as you can see clearly evidenced. So the double jump is a faster way of moving left or right than the sashes. Treble now going back through the library, just like Jarno did. Treble notably does not have the tablet. I don't remember where that one was found specifically. But that is a lot of checks that Treble can't make. Was the tablet gating anything particularly relevant? I feel like the library didn't have a lot, or I might have missed what was in some of these download checks. Jarno now checking the Emperor's towers, making the decision to go up the left side of the towers, presumably to fight the boss first and then go down the right side afterwards. Rebel continuing their search in the present. Treble now heading into the Lake Desolation area, effectively the starting area of the game under normal conditions. So I think they're now hitting checks that Jarno has not seen. Jarno, however, moving into the Emperor Nuvius fight, here replaced by the Maw. The Maw, not a very high damaging fight. As you can see, made short work of. Always in trouble finding Ilana at the Feline Sentry's location, the first nominal boss of the game. Of course, any late game boss that shows up here is going to get absolutely bullied because their health and damage are going to be vastly scaled down. So Jarno now in a position where the entire world, almost, is open to them. Minus a few things gated by that security keycard D. So they have the difficult decisions now of where to go to find their remaining pieces. And they can see on the map where they've been, where they haven't been. There's also built into the tracker, or built into the game, a tracker. Which, not sure if Jarno is planning on using. Jarno most likely has most of the checks memorized by now. All of the checks memorized by now. Going back to the lab in order to pick up the 5 checks in the trash dump. As Treble continues to go further and further left into the early parts of the game. A fairly check-dense area. But very out of the way. Not particularly paid off. Jarno has picked up the keycard D, which opens a little bit, opens this one particular room. Treble looks like they're heading into these... Nope. Treble finding the warp room and then moving on. So that is the warp room that then leads into the sealed caves, which is a fairly optional endgame area. A bit of a challenge to go through and a extremely powerful boss at the end. Trouble finding the spindle. So now we know where the spindle is. The spindle is in the underside of the Lake Desolation area, which Jarno is now making his way towards. Jarno going through just behind Trouble, fighting Ilana in the Feline Sentry position. A quick battle as expected. And we'll see them picking up that spindle before too long, I expect. Treble going into the upper sealed caves, a also fairly check-dense area that is frequently relevant and easily missed. What is the spider hell? Heck of a question. So there are enemies, I don't actually remember their real names anymore. I just call them hell spiders. They shoot giant red beams that cannot be bypassed, so the spiders must be killed. They're fairly tanky, and the best weapon that we have against them is nerfed, since the Radiant Orb is minus. It's, Security Hall. Then I'm afraid I'm not sure what you're talking about. The military hangar. Oh, okay. So, no worries. So the military hangar is a gate that is closed off until you beat 3 bosses in the past. That has since been opened up for all of our runners, so they can go through it. There is a particular flag in the tournament flag set that enables a end game location, the Temporal Gyre, which features a lot of randomly positioned enemies. And I think Treble is about to showcase it for you right now. There is no telling what enemies you'll find in here, but even with easy-to-kill enemies, it's slow and a bit of a hassle in order to get 3 chests that may or may not be relevant. Hellgazer. Okay, that makes sense. We see Jarno now heading into the sealed caves, deciding to brave this particular difficult area. Having skipped the Spindle's location. So I'm guessing Jarno went through the fire-gated checks across the top and didn't make it to the bottom checks. This gyre is not in logic for Treble. Oh, that's right. Treble doesn't have the wheel. So the gyre is only in logic if you already have the Timespinner wheel, which means the wheel itself can't be found here. Treble presumably hoping to find Gear 3 in an out-of-the-way place, but we already know that Gear 3 isn't in the gyre. I don't think this is going to pay off for him. You can see how slow this area is for Treble here. You have to defeat all of the enemies in a room before the room opens up. There are 2 rooms in between each set of checks. And then another 2 rooms at the end before you can get teleported out. True. Empire Plus would be a boon to either of our runners. So there is still equipment that could speed things up for any of our runners. So this is why the Timespinner wheel is required for this area. There's an enemy that is only hurtable when time stop is active. However, you can time it out. After, I believe, 30 seconds, the gate to the next room will open anyway. It's a slow way to do it, but it is doable. There's the tablet, right behind the military hangar. Okay. Jarno having picked up the wheel in the sealed cave, and we already know that the Timespinner spindle is very near this area. And those were the last 2 pieces that he was looking for in order to hit go mode. And I'm expecting the immediate warp here. There it is. Now Jarno is going to use these 5 pieces of the Timespinner in the lab, the room in which he fought whoever was replacing Genza. And this will unlock the Ancient Pyramid, the final location in our game. The choice between Feline Sentry and Ravenlord, both in high HP locations. Feline Sentry, an early game boss with fairly simple patterns, is a good choice for Jarno, I think. Feline Sentry, affectionately nicknamed Boots, named after the voice actor who voiced everybody's favorite cat boss. Feline Sentry, somewhat unique in that they have no particular elements they are weak to, although they do have some elements they're strong to. Jarno picking their favorite orb and favorite spells and going to town. It's going to be a bit of a slog, but shouldn't pose too much of a threat. Treble now in the lab, with tablet in hand, going through all of the checks. Jarno breaking time and moving into the Ancient Pyramid, wherein we will find a series of fun-to-dodge enemies and the final 2 bosses. Trouble going to be making their way to Genza's room, after which they will find themselves in the position of needing 2 more Timespinner pieces before they can follow in Jarno's footsteps. Presumably fighting the Feline Sentry as well, in order to get to the Ancient Pyramid. Jarno finding a rare enemy. Jarno does not care about rare enemies. Rebel now going into the Spider Hell room that Jarno skipped. I think it's the right play if they think they're behind. And unfortunately, we already know that they're not going to get much value out of this. But you can see just how bad it is. Jarno facing the first of the 2 final bosses. In this case, Sandman is being replaced by Emperor Volteralus. Emperor Volteralus, unfortunately, weak to one of the strongest weapons in the game. And in this seed, that said weapon is plus, meaning it's dealing double damage anyway, on top of the extra weak point. Jarno makes quick work of Emperor Volteralus. And our final boss, the Golden Idol. While Trouble has a rough time with the Hellgazers over in the lab. Of course, this final boss position, very high HP, but as you can see, nothing is getting through Jarno's armor. And that is the game. Jarno coming in first with an official race time of 47 minutes, 23 seconds. Congratulations. I'm going to see if we can get him in here for an interview. And see how Trouble feels about continuing their race. Looks like they're going to continue working, I think. An exclamation point for Jarno. Should have... My apologies, I'm just trying to get Jarno invited into this race room. And we should be able to get them in here for an interview momentarily. Meanwhile, Trouble now going into the Emperor's Towers. And it looks like... that is their forfeit. Let me bring them up into the commentary room.
Hello.
Hello, welcome Jarno, welcome Trouble.
Hello.
A great race, good times. Good time for Jarno, and an unfortunate did not finish for Trouble.
I was still 2 items out from finishing, so it's, yeah.
Understandable in that position. How did you feel about the seed, Jarno?
It was really interesting. Got all the good items as we need them all the time. So yeah, it was quite fast.
I noticed that you were particularly completionistic. You tended to clear places out rather than skipping checks or opting to come back to them later. Can you talk about some of your routing decisions?
Well, yeah, I generally try to go to the areas that I think have quite a high item density. Yeah, that's why let's like clear them out then. But that's about it, I guess.
I think it's because, at least me, we mostly play on Archipelago, so in that game, in that system, it's a lot more beneficial to full clear everything. So it's just kind of a bad habit now, if anything, just full clear everything.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, you've used this routing to clear everything. Yeah, that's probably it.
I've got pretty much everything except for the 2 things I need.
Yeah, you have picked up pretty much everything along the way. Jarno, so just talking about the divergences in routing decisions here. Treble, you went into the Spider Hell rooms the moment you could. Jarno, you completely skipped them, but you went into the Zarian caves, whereas Treble kind of hit the warp point and then dipped out of there.
Yeah, some people say Zarian Cave not a lot of item checks there, but I think it's still quite fast. Just go through there, pick up like 5-6 locations. I didn't bother killing. I wasn't gonna kill Mel, Zarian at all, because that takes a lot of time. But just picking up the chest is quite fast, I think.
Yeah, Zarian's caves takes quite a while, and I did really bad on the Cantern fight early, so I just decided to go for military base at that point. And the only reason I did the Spider Hell there is because like I still didn't have any. If I'd orphaned that, then I'd be screwed.
That would have been a tough one to come back to for sure. Yeah, I don't have.
Did you actually pick up the Fire Orb Plus at the start?
Oh yeah, I picked that up like almost immediately.
Ah, nice. Yeah, me too.
I was like,
nice.
might as well. I hit a warp point, and I was like, yeah, might as well.
Yeah.
And I got Fire Orb, and I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah. I also skipped all of the underwater checks in the Lake Serene. I find that to be quite slow, so I used that then to avoid that area.
Yeah,
when
I really should have skipped out on Lake because there wasn't anything of worth there really.
You did end up going to the waterfall earlier than Jarno did in their routing, so you saved a bit of time there, Treble.
Yeah, did you do the top of Banished early, since we had the sash like immediately?
Caves of Banishment.
That's where Eternal Coat was, which would have been very helpful in that Campthorn fight.
Yeah, that was something that Jarno got very early on.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah,
I remember. Would have helped quite a bit.
Yeah.
I had no shirt or anything. I was just, well, all right.
I only got to warp that though. I think the actual caves I did after I killed the Maw. Yeah.
Sounds about right. Well, I don't have any more questions for you. Any comments? Anything you want to say?
Oh, thank you for staying up this late for us, Jim.
Yeah, happy to help, even though I had my own problems throughout the process.
It's very early.
Yep.
Trouble, any comments for the room?
Nope. I should have spent more time practicing because I'm very, very rusty.
This was a rough seed. You had some difficult to face bosses in the beginning for sure. All right. Well, anywhere people can find you. You have a shout out here?
I don't really stream, so no.
Fair enough.
No, no, I'm okay.
I encourage anybody here. Go for it.
Yeah, they can find me in the Timespinner Discord, which I just linked.
Excellent. Yeah, I encourage anybody here who's interested in Timespinner to join the Discord. Anybody who's interested in the Timespinner Rando, please join the Discord. That's the primary place where randomizer information comes out. Timespinner Randomizer also a part of Archipelago, which is a fantastic multi-world experience. And on that note, I think we're about done here.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
GG.
And thanks everybody for joining us here. Thanks for watching these Timespinner races. And thanks to SpeedGaming for supporting us and providing these streams and getting the good word out about Timespinner. And on that note, thanks everybody. Have a good night.